Cam Newton just went absolutely nuclear on the Atlanta Falcons ownership. We aren't talking about a simple disagreement here. We aren't talking about a former player questioning a scheme fit or a play call. We are witnessing one of the most brutal, unfiltered, and scathing takedowns of an NFL franchise that we have seen in years. Cam Newton didn't just criticize the hiring of Kevin Stefanski. He framed it as a massive betrayal to the culture, to the city of Atlanta, and to the future of young black quarterbacks in the NFL. The Atlanta Falcons, a franchise situated in one of the blackest cities in America, in what many consider the blackest division in the entire NFL, just made the decision to hand the keys of their franchise to the man who was just run out of Cleveland. And Cam Newton is asking the question that everyone in Atlanta is thinking, but is too afraid to say. We saw what you did with Shedeur, and it was unacceptable. Newton is calling out what he sees as a pattern of sabotage. He believes Stefanski is a coach who systematically fails to connect with, develop, and respect quarterbacks who come from an authentic black background. And now, that same coach is landing in the NFC South, what Cam calls the HBCU of NFL football. This is a collision course waiting to happen. The culture is fighting back, and Cam is leading the charge. This isn't just about X's and O's. It's about identity. It's about respect. And it's about saving a roster of young prodigies from a system that might destroy them. Let's break down exactly why this hire has Superman so angry.
How you gonna handle it? We seen what you did with Shaduer. And it was unacceptable. No blacker division than the NFC South. I'm telling you, you got Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans.
Carolina,
that's the blackest division in all of football. Shedeur, a member of the culture.
Yeah.
And you probably done landed in the most culturist
of culture.
Of culture.
Oh my God.
To understand the fury behind Cam's words, you have to understand the landscape. You have to understand the soil that this team is planted in. The Atlanta Falcons don't just play in a stadium. They represent a city. Atlanta is the mecca of black culture. It is the Hollywood of the South. It is a city defined by swagger, by music, by innovation, and by a deep, unapologetic connection to the community. The NFC South, with Atlanta, New Orleans, and Carolina, is distinct. As Cam put it, there is no blacker division than the NFC South. It is a division defined by identity, and into this environment, the Falcons' ownership decided to drop Kevin Stefanski. The disconnect is blinding. You are taking a coach who just came from Cleveland, a place where he allegedly struggled to connect with the few black stars who truly represented the culture, and transplanting him into the heart of it. It feels like a slap in the face. It feels like the ownership didn't look at the city they represent. They looked at a spreadsheet, ignored the cultural reality, and made a hire that feels completely foreign to the fan base. Cam Newton is making sure we don't miss the optics here. He's shouting from the rooftops that this isn't just a football decision. It's a decision that ignores the soul of the team. When you bring a coach with Stefanski's specific baggage, his rigid demeanor, his analytics-driven approach that often ignores human instinct, into Atlanta, you are asking for a locker room revolt before the first whistle even blows. But Cam's critique goes deeper than just geography. He brought receipts, and the biggest receipt he has is named Shedeur Sanders. This is the core of Newton's argument. It is the smoking gun. In Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski had a golden opportunity. He had Shedeur Sanders, a young, talented, charismatic quarterback with a legendary pedigree and all the tools to be a superstar. He had the prince of the NFL draft. And what happened? Did Stefanski mold him? Did he build an offense around him? Did he protect him? No. According to Cam, he sabotaged him. Cam didn't mince words. He straight up declared that Stefanski denied Shedeur his legitimate chance, simply because Shedeur represents hood culture. Because Shedeur comes from that authentic black experience. The confidence, the flash, the unapologetic style that guys like Stefanski apparently can't or won't understand. It was a mismanagement of assets that bordered on malpractice. Instead of embracing the talent, Stefanski tried to suppress it. He tried to force a square peg into a round hole, asking a dynamic playmaker to be a robot. And when it didn't work, he let the quarterback take the blame. Cam is pointing at that disaster in Cleveland and asking a terrifying question for Falcons fans. If he treated Shedeur Sanders' son like that, what do you think he's going to do to your guys? If he couldn't handle the most media-trained, high-profile rookie in history, how will he handle a locker room full of young stars who need guidance, not suppression?
The NFC South is almost the HBCU of NFL football.
Oh, very.
This brings us to a tactical problem that Cam alluded to, but we need to dive deeper into. It's the clash of philosophies, the robot versus the creator. Kevin Stefanski's system is built for robots. It is the Shanahan light system. It requires the quarterback to turn his back to the defense, execute a fake, turn around, and throw to a spot. It doesn't require thinking. It requires obedience. It worked with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, because Kirk is a robot. He follows instructions perfectly. But look at the quarterbacks Stefanski fails with. Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Shedeur Sanders. These are creators. These are guys who play off instinct. They thrive when the play breaks down. They need freedom to improvise. When you put a creator in a robot system, you kill their confidence. You make them second-guess their own eyes. Atlanta has Michael Penix Jr. Is Penix a robot? Absolutely not. He is a gunslinger. He has a unique delivery. He plays with flair. By hiring Stefanski, the Falcons are effectively telling Michael Penix, stop being you, be Kirk Cousins. That is a recipe for disaster. We just watched it fail in Cleveland with Shedeur. Why would we think it will work in Atlanta? You cannot ask a jazz musician to play classical music and expect him to be happy. Cam Newton knows this because he was a creator. He knows that coaches like Stefanski view creativity as a threat to their system, rather than an asset to be unleashed. Now, the defenders of this hire might say, maybe Shedeur was the problem. Maybe it was just a bad fit. Maybe the offensive line was bad. Cam anticipated that argument, and he destroyed it with one single undeniable statistic. During his time with the Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski cycled through 13 different quarterbacks. Let that number sink in. 13. That is not a run of bad luck. That is a systemic failure of coaching. When you go through 13 different signal callers, veterans like Joe Flacco, rookies like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, high-priced stars like Deshaun Watson, scrappy fighters like Baker Mayfield, and you cannot develop a single one of them into a consistent franchise performer, the problem isn't the players. The problem is the chef, not the ingredients. Cam emphasized this point brutally. He asked, who has gotten better from the player's perspective? Who can you hang your hat on and say, I coached this guy, I made his career? The answer is silence. There is no success story. There is only a graveyard of quarterback confidence. Baker Mayfield left Cleveland and immediately looked like a Pro Bowler in Tampa. Odell Beckham Jr. left Cleveland and immediately won a Super Bowl in LA. Everyone seems to thrive the moment they escaped Stefanski's system. Yet the Falcons looked at that track record of regression, a resume of failure that spans half a decade, and decided, yes, this is the man we want developing our future. It is a logic that defies explanation.
How you gonna handle it? We seen what you did with Shaduer.
We have to talk about the man signing the checks, Arthur Blank. Why did he make this hire? Why did the owner of the Falcons sign off on a coach who seems to be such a terrible fit for his city and his roster? Cam Newton didn't call out Blank by name, but the implication is there. The ownership is out of touch. Arthur Blank has been chasing a system ever since Kyle Shanahan left. He saw the magic of the 2016 offense, and he has spent nearly a decade trying to recreate it. He hired Arthur Smith because he ran a similar system. Failed. Now he hires Stefanski because he runs a similar system. It is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Blank seems to have a blind spot. He is obsessed with the offensive genius archetype, the stoic, play-calling guru, and he completely undervalues the leader of men archetype. He undervalues the connection to the city. By hiring Stefanski, Blank is proving that he views the players as cogs in a machine. He thinks if he just finds the right operator, Stefanski, the machine will run. But football is a human game. It is an emotional game. And by ignoring the emotional and cultural reality of his team, Arthur Blank is setting his franchise back another 5 years. This is where the fear becomes real for Atlanta fans. This isn't just about reviewing the past. It's about fearing for the future. The Atlanta Falcons have one of the most exciting young cores in the NFL. They have Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. They have Bijan Robinson at running back. They have Kyle Pitts at tight end. They have Drake London on the outside. These are young, gifted, predominantly black athletes who play with flair and athleticism. They are the exact type of prodigies that Cam Newton is worried about. Look at how Stefanski used his stars in Cleveland. He often forgot about Nick Chubb in key moments. He struggled to get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. He alienated his best players. If Stefanski couldn't figure out how to use Shedeur Sanders, how is he going to use Michael Penix? If he couldn't maximize the talent in Cleveland, why do we think he will unlock Kyle Pitts? It feels like hiring a tutor who failed every math test to teach your kid advanced calculus. You are handing a Ferrari to a guy who has crashed every sedan he's ever driven. Cam sees these young players, players who represent the future of the league, and he sees them walking into a trap. He sees their potential being suffocated by a system that has proven time and time again that it cannot nurture this specific type of talent.
The thing about Kevin Stefanski is this.
Yeah.
Who has gotten better from the player's perspective that you can hang your hat on?
So I coached this guy. I made his career.
Cam didn't just attack the Falcons, he attacked the NFL's hiring cycle. Why does a coach who just failed get another job immediately? Why does Kevin Stefanski get to fail upwards? It speaks to the good old boys club of the NFL. It speaks to the retread fraternity. The league loves to recycle known commodities rather than take risks on new, diverse leadership. Stefanski was fired for losing. He was fired for losing the locker room. He was fired for regression. In any other industry, if you are fired for incompetence, you don't get promoted to a competitor the next week. You have to go down a level. You have to become a coordinator again. You have to prove you learned your lesson. But not in the NFL. In the NFL, if you look the part, if you fit the offensive guru mold, you get infinite chances. Cam is frustrated because he knows there are black coaches, leaders like Eric Bieniemy, or internal candidates who never get that second chance. They have to be perfect. Stefanski can be mediocre. He can be a disaster. And he still gets the keys to an NFL franchise. It is a double standard that is exhausting to watch. And Cam is tired of being quiet about it. We have to address the elephant in the room, because Cam certainly did. His critique carries a heavy implication of racial bias in coaching evaluations and player management. When Cam talks about Stefanski failing, especially when they are black, he is highlighting a double standard. He is suggesting that there is a disconnect between Stefanski and the black quarterback that goes beyond X's and O's. It's about relatability. It's about trust. It's about understanding the person under the helmet. Cam is suggesting that Stefanski views the confidence of a guy like Shedeur Sanders as arrogance, rather than an asset. He views the culture as a distraction, rather than a fuel source. He's hard to coach. He doesn't study enough. He drifts in the pocket. Cam argues that because of that fundamental misunderstanding, Stefanski suppresses the very traits that make these players special. Instead of channeling the swagger, he tries to kill it. This is a pattern we have seen in the NFL for decades. The cerebral coach who wants a robot at quarterback, clashing with the dynamic playmaker who relies on instinct and swagger. Cam Newton lived this battle his entire career. He knows what it looks like when a coach doesn't believe in you. And he is seeing those same red flags waving frantically over the Falcons facility right now.
From what we've seen, don't get better with Kevin Stefanski. And I'm looking at the personnel of the Atlanta Falcons. They're a young team. You got Michael Penix as your quarterback, Drake London as your receiver, Kyle Pitts,
Bijan.
Like that's a very young team. Like your team is young. It's like you're inheriting something that's already great and ready to rock and roll.
To make this hire even worse, we have to remember who was already in the building. A few years ago, the Falcons had Raheem Morris as an interim head coach. What happened? The players loved him. The defense played hard for him. The culture was shifting. He was a leader of men. He understood the city. And what did the Falcons do? They let him go. They hired Arthur Smith instead. Now, years later, Raheem Morris is a hot commodity again. But instead of correcting their mistake and bringing back a leader the players respect, they hire Kevin Stefanski. It shows a pattern. The Falcons actively avoid the leader archetype in favor of the schemer. They want the guy with the play sheet, not the guy with the pulse of the locker room. Cam Newton knows this history. He knows that Atlanta has had chances to hire culture fits, and they consistently refuse. It makes the Stefanski hire feel like a deliberate choice to ignore the voice of the players. It's a message that says, we know better than you do. But even if you strip away the culture, the race, and the vibes, Cam argues that this hire still makes no sense strictly by the numbers. He pointed out a devastating fact. Kevin Stefanski's record over the last 2 years is worse than the coach Atlanta just fired. Think about the insanity of that. The Falcons fired Arthur Smith because he wasn't winning enough. He went 7-10 3 years in a row. So, they went out and hired a guy who was winning less in Cleveland over the last stretch. It is the definition of insanity. Defenders of Stefanski love to point to that one playoff win in 2020. They cling to it like a life raft. But Cam wasn't having it. He called that revisionist history. He pointed out that the Cleveland roster was absolutely stacked with talent. They won despite the coaching, not because of it. And since that moment, it has been a steady slide into mediocrity, stagnation, excuses. That is the resume. That is what Atlanta bought. They replaced a headache with a migraine and expected the pain to go away. Finally, we have to talk about the fans. Because if you think Cam Newton is angry, check the message boards in Atlanta. The fans are tired. They are tired of offensive geniuses who can't score points. They are tired of watching their exciting players get misused. This hire has sucked the energy out of the city. There is no buzz. There is no excitement. There is only apathy. And apathy is the death of a sports franchise. Ticket sales are going to struggle. Merchandise sales are going to struggle. Why would a fan invest in a team when the ownership clearly doesn't understand what the fans want? Cam Newton is the voice of the people right now. He is saying what the season ticket holders are feeling. He is warning the Falcons that they are losing the city. If Stefanski starts